Welcome back to the Tech Startup Network podcast. Joining me today is Carmen Banks, founder and CEO of MelanInScience. Carmen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Ashley.
Thanks for being here. I'm really looking forward to having you share more about who you are and what you do. So feel free to dive right in with that.
So again, my name is Dr. Carmen Banks. I am a cell and molecular biologist by training and have kind of developed my scientific background in early stage biotech startups here in San Francisco. So I've worked in everything from lab grown meat to drug discovery and ag tech. And have been really excited about science innovation, honestly, since I finished my PhD in UC Davis and decided to found MelanInScience to serve as a place for folks who are also very interested in science innovation, all things biotech, biopharma, but don't necessarily have the networks, the education, or the resources to make that connection between academia and industry.
Yeah, I love it. And especially because like you said, it can be a challenge with forming that bridge. So being able to help people go from academia to pursuing a career in biotech, I think is really
Mhm.
awesome and really helpful to just help them on that path.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'd love to hear more about what Melanin Science offers and different ways that you could support people.
Yeah, so right now we function mainly as an education and innovation platform. And I founded the company really rooted in my own experiences when I was both an undergrad and a grad student and had this love for science, but knew I didn't necessarily want to go the healthcare route, which a lot of schools will push their students if you're like a biology major. And I also knew I did not want to go into academia when I finished my PhD. However, I just wasn't exposed to all of the different opportunities that existed, like becoming a scientist like I am today, or even going into the innovation and the business side of science. And so, what we do at MelanInScience is we give folks the access and the education by way of programs such as those that bridge the gap between undergraduate and graduate education into industry through our flagship STEM Connect program. And we also do a lot of networking and educational programming around turning those awesome ideas that you have in science into ventures. So if you want to become a biotech founder or even just work in the science innovation industry, we do a lot of events and programming around that as well.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think being able to have I think you said it was like an accelerator, being able to have that program as well as the events, I think just gives people, like you said, just a little bit more context. Because I feel like it can be difficult being in school and not exactly having exposure to all these opportunities, or possibilities yet. So being able to just meet with people and go through these initiatives to give more ideas and options, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the reality is healthcare and academia are really awesome fields to pursue, but there's this whole other industry within science which has a great ROI. You don't have to worry about taking out loans if that's what you need to do to go to medical school or pharmacy school, while still being able to contribute to a lot of the healthcare and the science field while making great money, and having a huge impact in the world that we live in.
Absolutely. And I'd love to talk more about how you support, because you mentioned this, I think it's really awesome, how you support people who are looking to start their own companies in biotech and become tech founders. Could you share more about what that has been like?
Yeah, so that's been super awesome. And again, most of what we do at MelanInScience has really been rooted in my experiences, both as a student and a scientist working in the industry. And one of the things that I've consistently seen, specifically for underrepresented founders, is we often don't have the same type of networks, which is really important for building businesses, whether it's venture backed or otherwise. And the same type of resources that a lot of other folks have to really learn about what building a business looks like. I've also found that living in San Francisco, which is, one of the innovation capitals of the world, that I don't see many folks that look like myself who are starting ventures within the life science industry specifically. And so we've developed a lot of collaborative programming around really just building a robust workforce. So folks who are interested in starting their own businesses have access to folks that can provide funding for those businesses. They can provide education around what that looks like. So, what type of framework do I need from the legal standpoint? How do I leverage accelerators? How do I meet other people, like-minded folks who have created something like what I want to create so I can tap into that network and learn more? And then creating intentional spaces for those people to connect. So this summer, we're really excited to kind of bridge the tech bio intersection. There's a lot of opportunity there by way of hosting a biosolutions hackathon, which will bring together both builders, funders, and founders in the room to again create that space for folks to have those conversations alongside the people that are building those types of technologies in the biotech biopharma industry. In addition to that, we also do a lot of events centered around connecting folks who are more senior in the field that might have an interest in delving into, let's say, angel investing or mentorship broadly for folks that are founders through our executive leadership conversations that we're hosting at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So I love that you provide both like the support with the entrepreneurship route, and then also if someone wants to work more like a traditional role for another company, that you're able to support in both paths.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's really cool that we're seeing this emergence, well, it's been existing, but I think now it's has a lot more visibility is there is this innovation venture side that exists within larger enterprise level companies. So you can be involved in those types of roles. You can have that type of experience and build your portfolio without having to take on the risk to do it yourself.
Yes, definitely. I actually had previously interviewed a VC on this podcast who basically helped do that, like worked with corporations to help them like spin out ventures out of
Hmm.
the corporations, which is really interesting. And so, like you said, it's a good benefit because there's not as
Yeah,
much risk involved with that pathway.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is so impressive about MelanInScience is just like the amount of people who are involved. Like you have so many partners, so many speakers, so many volunteers. And I've always been a big lover of community and like truly feel like the people around us are what help us to achieve our mission and do great things. And so I'd love to hear about how you've been able to build that network for MelanInScience and bring everyone together.
Yeah, I think all of us within the community have this shared mission and shared vision. And when I just talk to folks like yourself or kind of share that vision with other folks in rooms or podcasts, or even just in one-on-one conversations, and people are kind of bought in, that's what's really allowed us to grow our community to, I think we're over 4,000 people in 2 years,
Oh
which
my
is a pretty
gosh,
significant amount of growth
that's
since I
amazing.
started. Yeah, so it's been really exciting. And I think what's super important that I try and be really intentional about with our community as well is really quality over quantity. It's always great to have, 15,000 followers, a million followers, whatever that looks like. But what I'm aiming to build is a group of people that are really dedicated to helping the next generation in whatever way that looks like. We know that everyone's capacity is different. So that doesn't always have to look like a mentor mentee relationship, but it could be passing on job opportunities. It can be having a coffee chat. It could be having someone on a podcast, really just to create more dialogue and to create more visibility for people that are underrepresented in this space.
Definitely. Yeah, and 4,000 people, my goodness, that is huge. So congratulations on that. How do
Thank
you,
you.
because we do have a lot of people that I chat with who are also in that community building space. And so what are some methods that you found that worked for growing your community and being able to reach that amazing growth?
Yeah, showing up consistently. I know that's easier said than done, especially when you're first getting started. I know I was really hard on myself when I wasn't seeing the growth at first. But people will notice that consistency. I've seen that through and through. And so just showing up as my authentic self, being grounded and rooted in my why and my mission, and making sure that folks really understand the impact of what we're doing, I think has really helped to gain the following. I've also been really intentional about the programming that we run to serve a need that's been unmet by other parties. So a lot of the educational work that we do to bridge the academic to industry pipeline is rooted in knowledge that we're not learning in our for or to whatever institution, college that you go to. It's, this hidden curricula of what does industry actually want versus what is our school or educational institution teaching us. And so we're really grounded in filling that gap for folks. So they're getting some sort of knowledge that they are unable to or struggling to find elsewhere.
I love that. And that's a really good point, is just being able to find that unmet need and being able to provide the solution to that, especially when it comes to community. Because sometimes I feel like there are so many great communities out there that exist, but sometimes I'm like, they seem so similar in a sense. And
Yeah.
so being able to like start that community that truly is differentiated from others is incredible.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too. Going back to your point about community building, it's really collaboration makes a difference, and we can conquer a lot more if we find folks that are doing similar work. Maybe the demographic of people is a little bit different, but of course, there's always going to be an overlap. And so I really believe in the power of collaborating with folks as well to share our mission, to share the programs that we have going, and to get more people involved.
100%. And so one thing too that I also would love to pick your brain about is that very impressively you balance your full-time role and then Melanin Science. So I'd love to hear, because we have a lot of founders especially who might
Yeah.
still be in their full-time role and building their startup at night or on the weekend, but would love to hear from your own perspective and journey how you juggle the two.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have too many things going on, to be completely honest. I just took on a teaching role, which is one of the things I also love to do, but very in line with what we do at Melanin Science. I will say that doing a PhD has kind of trained me for this type of rigor. I was in a pretty intense lab, so having a million and one things to do and juggling many different things. In grad school, I was teaching research, personal life, all of the things, kind of made me comfortable with the uncomfortable. But it definitely takes a lot of intention. I mean, my full-time job, of course, because that's what's paying my bills, is what's going to have to come first, and
Mhm.
making sure that I prioritize the most amount of time to fulfill and really exceed, because I'm kind of a perfectionist of what I need to do for my full-time role, but then also being really intentional about doing the right things for my business instead of doing everything for my business.
Yeah, I love that you keep mentioning the word intention and intentional, because I think that's a really good reminder for people, is to just like I'm speaking for myself because I'm very guilty of like shiny object syndrome, where I get an idea or
Yeah.
something I want to follow, I'm like, let me jump on it. But you're
Yeah.
sharing a really good reminder here to just almost like stop and pause and think if it makes sense for you with your time commitment, your long-term goals before actually acting on it.
Yeah, and I think the shiny object syndrome, I resonate with that so fully. That is my entire life. To be completely honest, I am fortunate enough to have folks in my circle that either work with me at Melanin Science or are mentors who are able to be like, Carmen, do you need to do that thing right now? Like, that thing will
Yeah.
probably be here in a couple months, in a couple years. Like, let's focus on the most important things right now. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard. And especially when you're first getting started and you don't really have a following yet, you don't really have any grounding because you're still figuring things out. It's really hard to be intentional because
Yeah.
for me personally, my journey was kind of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Mhm.
And that is a strategy. I don't know if that's the best strategy, but it's the one that I took. And that was, beneficial for me at that time, but also it really led to burnout. I mean, I burned out really quickly and am still kind of recovering from that. So then I had to take a step back and really remind myself and root myself in what I'm doing and working smarter and not necessarily working harder.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's a good point too about what your team reminded you, that it's okay to hold on some things until it makes sense. But that's another point too, is that it sounds like you have a great team that's there to support you and help see some of these initiatives through so that it's not all on your plate.
Yeah, I do. I have an incredible team, small but mighty team at MelanInScience who supports a lot of the work that we're doing. I have an amazing advisory board, folks that have been close in my network, close relationships with me really for years, even before I started MelanInScience. And so that's been really helpful in helping build the business.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to hear if you have any partnerships with educational institutions to like help drive some of this connection.
Yeah, so we actually just finished up a cohort sponsored by UC Davis for our STEM Connect program. So we were really excited about that. We served over 100 students in their life science broadly, but mainly biotech students, undergrad and graduate students. That was all geared towards getting them ready for roles in industry after academia. We work with a number of other colleges and universities for our programs. We have again, over 4,000 people in our network, and those are students, professionals, executives from all over. So we have a ton of schools in our network that we're working with and expanding our STEM Connect program to other universities and colleges as well in 2027.
Love that. And I'm glad that you brought up 2027 because I'd love to talk about the next year, what it looks like for MelanInScience. I know you mentioned having done cohorts, of course, the events that you've been working on, but any other big plans that you can talk about?
Yeah, so we're really excited to dive again more into this founder funder ecosystem within the life sciences. We are very rooted in the educational component, of course, through our STEM Connect program, but building on that, taking it another notch and connecting this through line between the ecosystem that we're building. So, as I mentioned, we have students, we have founders, we have executives and senior leaders, and we have professionals at all levels, whether it's early, mid, or late stage in their career. And what is really missing when folks build these ecosystems is the through line. And
Hmm.
so, what we're excited about is being able to leverage some of the founders that we have in our community and connect the dots between the early career talent that we have that are looking to get more experience in the industry to help those founders build up their workforce and then to help them also get some more resources and networks and mentors through some of the folks that are more senior in our industry.
Oh, I love that. And I think mentorship is just huge. And being able to connect people with someone who has gone through the path that this person is looking to go through, I think provides so much context that you can't always get elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so I'd love to hear too anything that you've learned along the way. So for someone who, because I view you as a founder, but also community builder, you're a huge community
Yeah.
builder. And so I'd love for you to share advice that you've learned just through this journey for anyone who's listening to this episode who finds themselves following a similar path.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question a lot. And a lot of people ask me this, and depending on the season of life I am, that answer always changes. But for me in this season, I think it is to continue to show up and to show up unapologetically. It's really hard, especially in the era of social media, to not compare yourself to other folks' successes. And, I've fallen into that trap as well of seeing other folks like, oh, how do I get to this point? Or, oh, how do I get this many people in my community or have this type of partnership? But that can actually detract a lot from your mission, from your values, and from progress. And
Mhm.
so I've just kind of am in this season of keeping my head down and continuing to show up and having faith that the right people, the right partners, in the right timing will happen when it's supposed to. And I think building on that even further is the showing up unapologetically part. Me being an underrepresented person, a Black woman in science, a Black woman in entrepreneurship, where there's not a lot of us, it can be hard with a lot of the adversity that we have to face. And we also are faced with this conflict of having to conform ourselves to what society wants us to look like. And so I've really taken on the responsibility and ownership of showing up as myself and not caring if people don't like the way that that is, not caring if that doesn't look like what other people are used to. Because the reality is we're all different and our differences are really is what's going to make this world stronger. It's what drives innovation really is like those new thoughts, those new ideas, new faces, places, people, and things. So yeah, I'm really in my season of showing up and showing up unapologetically and authentically.
Oh my gosh, I just got chills. I love that response because I think it's so important. Going back to like what you mentioned about social media and trying not to get caught up in other people's successes. I think the same thing can happen too on social is that like you want to try to be like someone else or it's
Yeah.
easy to want to try to fit in, quote unquote, but I am a firm believer that like how you show up as you are will always attract the right people and
Yes.
vet out the wrong people. So, and I
Yes.
think that's something you were kind of alluding to.
Yes. Yes. 10,000%.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so good. And I'd love to hear too, I mean, if there's anything that you found to be challenging in growing a community, like especially knowing that you have so many exciting things going on, if there's anything that you wish you did differently or struggles that you faced.
So many challenges. Every day is a challenge. I think we could talk this whole hour about all my challenges, to be quite frank. But I would say, the biggest challenge is there's a lot of things that I'm unlearning. One of
Mm,
the things that I'm unlearning is that I have to do everything myself, even though I have a small team. Me being a control freak, me being a scientist, me always having people that have, worked under me, I feel this sense of control sometimes where I have to do everything. And if I'm not doing that, then it might not get done the right way or it might not get done at all. So I'm really learning to trust the people that I have around me and like understanding people's strengths and understanding that everything will be okay if I'm not doing it. And
yeah.
honestly, me doing everything is hindering our progress.
Mhm.
And so that's been one of the challenges for me on a personal growth level is really like letting go, asking for help, and trusting and allowing people to do their own thing and let it watch people flourish. Like I don't have to do everything. And a lot of that is really rooted in like when I first started my organization, it was only me. And I
Mhm.
was just used to doing everything. And I felt bad for asking people to do stuff because this is my little baby. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
burden you with this little passion project that I have going on. But the beautiful thing about community is a lot of people will show up because they care, because they believe in the mission, and they genuinely just want to help. Like they don't
Yeah.
expect anything in return other than just wanting to help. So I've been really, on the flip side, enjoying that aspect of that growth with that challenge specifically. I think another challenge that I've had while growing this community, honestly, is the shiny object syndrome, like not getting distracted. I am so I think the field of science is just so vast and so interesting to me. And there are so many gaps that can be filled within the workforce, within innovation. I want to solve them all and I want to do it all tomorrow. But the reality is, I obviously cannot do that. And so just staying focused while also, feeding some of that shiny object. Like, so that, for me, that's what keeps me going. Like knowing that there's
Mhm.
always another goalpost that I can reach for or that I can work towards next. But really being again intentional about what are my goals for this particular season or this particular timeline. Let's focus on completing those goals first. And then knowing when that's finished, then I can go take a look at that shiny object to the left.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, such good advice. And I especially love what you mentioned about delegation and learning to trust in the team that's behind you. Like, no lie, I'm in that exact situation myself. And finally, for Tech Startup Network, just looped in
Yeah.
some help because there's just too much to do. And I realized, and
Yeah.
I think this is something a lot of community builders can relate to, but I realized that by trying to do everything myself, I'm actually holding the community
Yes.
back from reaching its potential because there's only so
Yes.
much time in the day. So, I love that you shared that reminder because it's so good and a really good point for people to know is to just like you have these great people around you for a reason, like lean on them when you need them.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's hard. It's so hard when
Yeah.
you're first getting started, but it's really beautiful watching that unfold when you do kind of just let go and you have the help and you're embracing the help. And then you watch how much quicker you're moving through those challenges versus when you're trying to do it yourself and you're stuck in juggling so many things that you had no business juggling. So, yeah, for sure, I resonate with that.
Yeah, definitely. And so, one other thing I'd like to ask you, Carmen, is that I always love to ask our guests where for their location that they're in, like why it's such a great area for tech. So being in San Francisco, of course, you mentioned it's one of the innovation hubs of the world, but would love to hear any other things that you've really appreciated about the city that you're really makes you really glad to be there.
Yeah, so I think San Francisco, by being one of the innovation hubs, we have access to so much knowledge, so many networks. So any
Mhm.
day of the week, I can hop on Luma or whatever event platform and find something going on in the city. And if I don't know how to do something, there is a 100% chance there's someone, whether it's a direct connection in my network or a connection of a connection somewhere here in the city that can teach me how to do that thing or connect me with someone who knows how to do that thing. So that's been really, really helpful with living in San Francisco, just having the access. I think for me also learning about the gaps that exist in our workforce through startup and even starting my own business, a lot of that knowledge I gained literally by working in startup. Like I worked in early
Mhm.
stage startups. I've seen what works, I've seen what doesn't work, and I've asked a lot of questions. And so that type of knowledge that you get in the workforce that's very specific to startup, I think might be hard to find elsewhere. Like, that's why people are pursuing MBAs to get that type of business knowledge. And one other way that you can acquire that knowledge is by working in a startup and being very close to the business aspect.
Mhm.
And then I would say the other thing, which is kind of a love hate that I have with San Francisco, is the grind culture.
Mm.
Everyone is building something in the city. And that is so motivating in itself to really keep you on your stuff, to make sure that you're building something, you're doing something, and that you're progressing in this city. At the same time, the rat race here in San Francisco looks, I'm from the East Coast, so it looks a little bit different than New York, but it's still kind of a grind culture rat race nonetheless. So it can be the lines between work and personal life can get really blurry here in San Francisco. And I was explaining to one of my colleagues, it's interesting because even let's say if you go out to drinks with friends or if you go out to dinner or you're doing something leisurely, all of the conversations around you in that restaurant or bar are probably about work, raising capital, their company. So it's like really hard to separate yourself from work in the city. But again, at the same time, it's really motivating and it's really conducive for building a business.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I feel like that's a huge internal struggle is just like not being able to separate yourself from the work that you're doing because you're so
Yeah.
passionate about it. And especially when you're constantly surrounded by people who are also of that same mindset or whatever it might be, like you said, they just blur so much. And so that's one thing I'd love to ask you is like how you kind of separate that for yourself. If there's certain routines or habits that you like to make sure that you do to ensure that you do have the time to fill up your cup, especially since you mentioned earlier that you had gone through burnout, which I think a lot of people are facing right now.
Yeah, I would say if you have the means, even if it's on a big vacation, I've kind of taken on this new tradition of taking some sort of vacation once a quarter, whether it's a trip down the coast in California, so like within the state, or going out of state or out of the country, visiting family, doing something that really just removes myself from the city of San Francisco.
Yeah.
That'll help me refill my cup and reground myself. I also have a dog, which really helps, and she's a very active dog. So we work out a lot, we run, hiking, staying outdoors. There are a lot of times on weekends where I can't necessarily like get away from the city, but I'll just go to the park and touch grass. Like I love to just
Yeah.
soak up the sun. I'll go to Dolores Park and just hang out and enjoy the outdoors. So it's been really, really helpful.
Oh my gosh, that's great advice. I think like just a change of scenery honestly really helps.
Yeah,
And I always find too that that's when you get your best ideas when like you're actively trying to do
yeah,
anything except work. Like that's when the ideas come to you because you finally give yourself the space and freedom to let these ideas
yeah,
and creativity flow through you.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, love it. And Carmen, one of my favorite questions to ask our guests is to give a shout out to someone in tech who's doing something cool right now that they really admire. So, could be a founder, VC, community builder. I'd love to hear who you're feeling really inspired by lately.
Oh, there's so many people, so many
I know,
organizations.
hard to pick just one.
I know. I'm gonna shout out a new organization, Impact Bio, with an incredible founder, Anissa Valentine. She is a bioinformatics person, however we define that role nowadays. But she's in bioinformatics and is also developing community through Impact Bio and another nonprofit organization that she leads for Black folks who are in the life sciences and that are looking to go into more computational biology in the bioinformatics space. So I think that is an incredible organization and what she's doing. We're collaborating for the hackathon, which I'm really
Amazing.
excited about. And we don't see many Black faces, let alone Black women, leading data, especially in the life science. So I've been so proud to be in community with her and watch her grow her business as well.
Love it. Great shout out. Carmen, this has been such a fun episode, and I've so enjoyed having you on the show to share all of the really wonderful things that you're doing with Melanin Science. And I'd love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to learn more.
Yeah, folks can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Carmen Banks. You can subscribe to our Melanin Science newsletter to hear more about of all of our events that we have going on at www.melanin-science.com. We also have a Luma page where we post all of our events, which we have quite a few coming up in both June and July, luma.com/melaninscience. And you can also follow us on social media, Instagram and TikTok MelaninScience_.
Fantastic. And I'll drop those links in the show notes for listeners to easily find you from there. Thank you so much again for coming on today's podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ashley.